Reverse bear trap. In the first Saw movie, Amanda Young wakes up with a scary metal device locked onto her head. This trap is designed like a giant bear trap, but in reverse. Instead of closing, it will spring open and rip her jaw apart if she doesn't get it off in 60 seconds. The key to unlocking the trap is hidden inside the stomach of a person lying in the same room with her. Amanda is told that if she wants to survive, she must dig into the person's body and find the key before time runs out. The idea that she has only 1 minute to save her life, while knowing that her head could be ripped apart, creates intense panic. The scariest part isn't even the trap itself, it's what Amanda has to do to escape. She's forced to cut into someone's body and pull out a key. This scene is so intense that you can feel Amanda's fear through the screen. But the next one is a pure test of endurance, throwing someone into a pit of needles in Saw 2. Needle Pit. A group of people is locked in a house filled with deadly traps. At one point, they are told that the key to the next room is inside a pit full of used syringes. When Amanda, one of the characters, refuses to go in, another person violently throws her into the pit. Amanda is then forced to dig through thousands of dirty, sharp needles to find the key. Unlike other traps, this one doesn't have spinning blades or crushing machines. The horror here comes from something much simpler, the idea of being thrown into a pit of syringes. The thought of having hundreds of needles poke into your skin as you struggle to move is enough to make anyone's skin crawl, especially since you have no idea if there's anything in the needles, and if there is, you have no idea what the hell it is. Amanda's desperation is clear as she claws through the needles, cutting herself over and over while racing against the clock. Even worse, her efforts are useless because by the time she finds the key, it's too late and the trap fails. But let's revisit Saw V, for a trap that flips things around. It punishes a man for doubting Jigsaw's message. Glass coffin. In this scene, FBI agent Strom is chasing Detective Hoffman, who is secretly Jigsaw's apprentice. They enter a small, strange room with a transparent glass coffin standing upright in the middle. The coffin is filled with broken glass, making it look like a death trap. A tape recording starts playing, telling Strom that the only way to survive is to get inside the glass box. But Strom doesn't trust it. Instead, he pushes Hoffman into the coffin and locks him inside. What Strom doesn't realize is that the coffin is actually the safe spot. Once the box is closed, it slowly lowers into the floor, safely out of harm's way. Then, the walls of the room start moving inward. Strom quickly realizes that he was supposed to get inside the coffin, but it's too late. The walls keep closing, turning the entire room into a giant trash compactor. Strom is crushed to death as his bones snap and blood sprays everywhere, while Hoffman survives, watching safely from inside the coffin. But if that was a lesson in trust, the next trap in Saw 3 is all about twisting pain, limb by limb, while testing someone's capacity for forgiveness. The rack. The victim is strapped to a large metal frame that looks like a twisted torture device. His arms, legs, and head are all locked in place with clamps. Once the trap starts, it begins to slowly twist his body parts, one by one. First, his right arm turns, then the left, followed by his legs, and finally, his head. Each limb is twisted 360 degrees, making bones snap and flesh tear. The sound of bones cracking and the screams of the victim make this trap really hard to watch. But it's not just about the physical pain. The real horror of the rack is that someone else is being tested too. Jeff, the man whose son was killed by the victim in a drunk driving accident, is watching. He has to decide whether he can forgive this man and save him, or let him die. There's a key that can stop the trap, but it's placed in a dangerous spot, guarded by a shotgun. Jeff struggles with his emotions and hesitates too long. By the time he tries to save the man, it's too late. The trap finishes its work, and the man's head is twisted and broken. But from twisted bodies, we go back to the very room where it all began, the iconic bathroom trap in Saw 1, the bathroom trap. Two strangers, Dr. Lawrence Gordon and a photographer named Adam, wake up in a dirty, disgusting bathroom. Both of them are chained by their ankles to pipes on opposite sides of the room. In the middle of the room lies a dead body, holding a gun in one hand and a tape recorder in the other. They are told that they have to follow a series of clues to escape. Lawrence is also told that if he doesn't kill Adam by a certain time, his wife and daughter will be killed. The only tools they are given are 2 hacksaws, but these saws are too weak to cut through the thick metal chains. That's when they realize the horrifying truth: the saws are meant for their feet. If they want to escape, they will have to cut off their own foot. The fear and panic build up as time runs out. The bathroom is filthy, small, and claustrophobic, making it feel like the walls are closing in on them. They grow more desperate as they try to figure out how to survive. This trap also has one of the biggest twists in horror movie history. The dead body lying on the floor? It turns out to be Jigsaw himself, who stands up and walks out of the room, locking the door behind him. But the next one in Saw 3 is a brutal test of survival, where time runs out and wings of flesh are forcibly spread. Angel Trap. The Angel Trap, also known as the Ribcage Trap, is one of the most visually shocking and painful traps in the Saw series. Detective Allison Carey wakes up suspended in a metal harness. Attached to her ribcage are two sharp metal hooks that dig deep into her flesh. Hanging from her arms, she looks like she's being prepared for a gruesome display. Above her is a timer. When the timer runs out, the metal hooks will spring open, ripping her ribcage apart and spreading it open like wings, just like an angel. But there is a way to escape, at least, that's what she's told. A key to unlock the trap is placed inside a glass jar filled with acid. Carey must quickly reach into the acid, retrieve the key, and unlock herself before the time runs out. The problem is, even with the key, the lock is placed in such an awkward position that it's nearly impossible to reach and unlock in time. The trap is designed in such a way that it's basically unwinnable. No matter how fast or determined she is, Carey doesn't stand a chance. Carey fights hard to survive, even burning her hand in the acid to get the key, but all her efforts are useless. When the timer hits 0, the hooks pull with violent force, tearing her ribcage open in one of the most gruesome deaths in the series. The way her body is ripped apart is horrifying, and the image of her chest spread open like wings is something viewers never forget. But as Carey's body is torn apart, Saw X takes it even further. Bone Marrow Trap. The victim, Valentina, wakes up chained to a chair. Around her neck is a thin, sharp wire. This wire is connected to a machine that will tighten and slice through her throat, cutting her head off when time runs out. To survive, Valentina must complete two horrible tasks in a very short time. First, she is given a Geegly saw, a wire saw used in surgeries, and is told to cut off her own leg above the knee. This means she has to saw through skin, muscle, and bone while a timer counts down. But that's just the first part. After cutting off her leg, she then has to take a vacuum tube and insert it into the exposed bone in her thigh. The tube will suck out her bone marrow, which needs to fill up a beaker to stop the neck wire from slicing her head off. The trap is designed to be a race against time. Valentina has to deal with incredible pain, blood loss, and the panic of knowing she's moments away from death. The worst part? Even after doing everything asked, cutting off her leg and starting the marrow extraction, she still doesn't make it in time. The machine is relentless, and eventually, the wire tightens around her neck, severing her head. But even after the most gruesome self-mutilation, Jigsaw shows us a trap that swaps blood for lasers, where the truth will literally cut you to pieces. Laser collars. Two people are strapped into chairs, each wearing a large metal collar around their neck. This isn't just any collar, it's fitted with deadly laser cutters. When the trap starts, a circle of lasers pops out from the collar, positioned just inches away from their heads. The lasers are slowly moving closer, ready to slice through their skulls like a giant closing iris. The rules of the trap are simple but terrifying. The two victims are told they must confess their sins if they want to survive. They are given a limited time to admit their wrongdoings. If they fail to confess or run out of time, the lasers will turn on and cut their heads open. One victim, thinking the trap is fake, refuses to confess and pays the ultimate price. When the lasers activate, his head is surgically sliced open in a clean but shocking kill, with his skull folding apart like a blooming flower. Later, it's revealed that one of the laser collar deaths was faked, as part of a bigger twist. But the first kill is very real, and one of the most memorable visuals in the entire Saw series. But moving from high-tech lasers to an old-school blade, Saw V brings back a classic, a swinging pendulum that demands a pound of flesh. Pendulum Trap. It starts with a man named Seth strapped tightly to a flat table. His arms and legs are tied down, and he cannot move. Above him hangs a large, sharp, and heavy pendulum blade. The pendulum swings back and forth, and with each swing, it lowers closer to his body. The message is clear. If Seth doesn't act fast, the pendulum will slice him in half, starting from his stomach and going all the way through. To survive, Seth is told he must crush both of his hands using two painful presses located beside him. He is supposed to give a pound of flesh by sacrificing his hands. With no choice, Seth slams his hands into the crushers, smashing his bones and skin in a gruesome act of self-mutilation. The audience watches as his fingers bend and break under the crushing weight. However, the true horror of this trap is revealed after he completes the task. Even though Seth does what is asked and brutally crushes his hands, the pendulum does not stop. The blade keeps swinging, and soon it slices into his body, cutting him open and killing him in a flood of blood. Unlike most of Jigsaw's traps, This one is unwinnable. No matter what Seth does, he was always meant to die. But the next one in Saw 6 turns self-mutilation into a deadly contest, a pound of flesh trap. Two people, a man and a woman, wake up with metal helmets locked onto their heads. These helmets have sharp screws that are ready to drill into their skulls if they don't escape in time. Between them is a balance scale, like the ones used to weigh items in a market. The rules of this trap are simple but horrifying. Both contestants must cut off pieces of their own flesh and throw it onto the scale. The person who sacrifices the most flesh will survive. The one who doesn't put enough weight on the scale will be killed as the screws drill into their brain. At first, both of them desperately try to hack away at their own bodies. The man, being heavier, thinks he can win by cutting chunks of fat from his stomach. He quickly grabs a knife and starts slicing off his belly fat, tossing bloody pieces onto the scale. On the other side, the woman knows she's lighter and realizes that cutting fat won't be enough. In a shocking and brutal decision, she grabs a cleaver and chops off her entire arm at the elbow, dropping it onto the scale. The weight of her arm tips the scale in her favor, and the helmet on her head unlocks, saving her life. The man, who couldn't cut enough flesh, loses and is killed as the screws drill into his skull. But from weighing flesh on a scale, we move to a trap that plays out in front of a horrified public, a love triangle gone deadly in Saw 3D, public execution trap. This trap takes place in broad daylight, right in the middle of a shopping plaza. Two young men, Brad and Ryan, wake up chained to opposite sides of a metal table. Between them is a sharp buzzsaw blade on a track that can slide toward either one of them. Above the saw is Dina, a woman who has been romantically involved with both men at the same time. The two men realize they have been played and betrayed by her. They are given 60 seconds to make a decision. Either one of them can push the saw toward the other and kill him, or they can choose to do nothing. If they choose to let the timer run out, Dina will be lowered onto the saw and sliced in half in front of the watching crowd. What makes this trap so disturbing is that it's not hidden in a dark, dirty basement like most jigsaw traps. This one is completely out in the open. A large crowd of people gathers outside the glass box, watching in horror as the three people scream and argue. Onlookers bang on the glass, but they can't do anything to help. As the clock ticks down, the two men realize they have been manipulated by Dina, who is still trying to convince both of them to save her and kill the other. But instead of turning on each other, Brad and Ryan make a surprising choice. They both stop pushing the saw and let Dina be the one to die. When the timer runs out, Dina is lowered onto the buzzsaw and gruesomely sliced in half, spraying blood onto the glass walls in front of the horrified crowd. But while that trap puts betrayal on display, the next in Spiral drags a lying cop into a subway tunnel, tongue-tier train trap. In this scene, a corrupt police detective wakes up standing on a high ladder placed in the middle of an active subway tunnel. His tongue is locked tightly in a metal vise hanging from the ceiling. The trap's message is clear. He's being punished for lying in court, so now his tongue, the tongue of a liar, is the key to his survival. The detective is given a choice. He can jump off the ladder, which will rip his tongue out of his mouth but give him a chance to survive. Or he can stay where he is and be hit head-on by a speeding train. With only 60 seconds to decide, the man panics and hesitates. The idea of ripping out his own tongue is so horrifying that he wastes precious seconds. By the time he makes up his mind, it's too late. The train barrels into him, smashing his body in a gruesome, messy death. But after that brutal punishment, Saw 3D brings us to a garage, where one man's desperate struggle to save his friends turns into a bloody domino of death horsepower trap. The main victim, Evan, wakes up glued to the driver's seat of a car. His bare back is literally stuck to the seat with superglue, and his skin is tightly bonded to the leather. The car is lifted on jacks, and in front of it is his girlfriend, who is tied to a post with her head placed right in front of the front tires. Behind the car is another man, chained to the rear bumper, and a fourth person is pinned against the wall by a large metal hook attached to the car's exhaust. The rules of the game are simple but horrifying. Evan must tear himself free from the seat by ripping the glued skin off his back. Once free, he must pull a lever within 30 seconds to stop the car from dropping and save everyone. But Evan's challenge is nearly impossible. Every time he tries to move, his skin peels and bleeds, causing him unbearable pain. Time ticks down, and he fails to break free in time. As the clock hits 0, the jacks drop, the car slams to the ground, and a gruesome domino effect begins. The car accelerates, crushing his girlfriend's head under the tires, yanking the man behind the car forward, dislocating his arms and legs, and pulling the man behind into the exhaust pipe, killing him. Finally, the car crashes through the garage wall, launching Evan to his death. If you enjoyed this video and want to see every secret in Saw movies, click the video on the screen.